So today I'm going to be watching this video. It's called Why the Dutch Are More Relaxed When It Comes to Parenting. Now, I thought this was relevant to me because I am a father to two young children. My son just turned 5. My daughter will be 2 in December. I love parenting. It's just the best. It's just honestly such a fulfilling experience. Nothing but positivity from me. And I feel quite relaxed as a parent as well. I want to know more about the Dutch style of parenting. Tell me if you are a parent in the Netherlands, how you parent. Tell me how you were parented, how it was growing up in the Netherlands. And yeah, let's learn a little bit more about that.
I think for quite a way, probably straight in pregnancy, I was faced with the question, how am I going to do that? How am I going to combine this thing? I had studied medicine and I hadn't specialized yet. And I had to do further training in order to be a doctor. I thought, how can I do that, being a mum and look after my child? And I felt a bit guilty having those two aspects of life. How would they come together? I wasn't sure about that.
Sociologist Caitlin Collins at Washington University in St. Louis interviewed dozens of mothers to understand more about how this clash plays out in the workforce.
Women, I think, unfortunately feel like they're failing all the time, and it is that sense of abundant and perpetual failure that I think leads to abundant stress, exhaustion, burnout amongst American mothers today, as well as those in other countries.
And you have to be patient all day, and after a while it builds up and you feel it creates a fight or flight response. I can feel the stress building up.
Yes.
And then when they're asleep, it's forgotten again.
Yes, that's right. It was always the most beautiful moment. They look at you like they're totally in love with you, and of course they are when they're young. And they want you so much. You're the most beautiful person in the world, and to feel that.
The United States has the most family-hostile public policy of any country in the Western industrialized world.
Among Dutch mums, stress might be less because of their parental leave, obviously. First of all, we have a long maternity leave, which is 16 weeks, what's long compared to the US.
We have no paid parental leave. That means that a lot of folks, men and women included, work right up until they have a baby. I can't tell you how many women I've interviewed who told me they were responding to emails on their phone while they were in labor between contractions in the hospital. That is not the norm in other countries.
We have 4 weeks before childbirth, so you have to take them. You know, not every mother might need those 4 weeks. I worked up until childbirth for each of my children, but not in the office, you know, from home. And that helps definitely in calming down or making your physiology a little more, you know, relaxed. Also, just the fact that in that first week you have help in your house, there's the maternity nurse.
Yeah, that one I'll come back to, but just on the maternity leave as well, it said there's 16 weeks paid. You get 4 weeks before giving birth. In total, how long did you take or your family take, or how long do you get, even like including unpaid? I know in some countries it can be a year, it can sometimes be longer as well. When you compare it to the US, when they get so little, it's stark, the difference. And yeah, for that time, having that immediate time to spend with your child or to prepare just makes that whole process less stressful and more enjoyable. And the long-term benefits of that, I mean, they speak for themselves, really. So tell me about your experience. I live in Malaysia. My wife only got 2 or 3 months. I think it was 3 months for the first, for my son, 2 months for my daughter, because she worked for different companies. Had to take unpaid leave for the rest of it as well. Paternity leave was like 3 days. It was pathetic. What's paternity leave like in the Netherlands as well? And the one I think they're just going to go on to talk about having someone come to you after giving birth, like a nurse. That's actually something they do have here in Malaysia, which was a great thing. The nurse will come to the house, check the baby, check the mother, give advice and that sort of thing. That's very invaluable, but I don't think it happens in many countries like the US, for instance. Tell me how that experience was for you too.
The fact that in that first week you have help in your house, there's the maternity nurse, it helps.
The United States, to be honest, is a laggard in this regard. We have no universal child care, no universal social insurance entitlement, no federal minimum standard for vacation and sick days. And what this means is that in the United States, most parents have to adopt private solutions to reconcile their caregiving with their paid employment. And when we leave it up to individual parents to reconcile these competing demands, what we get is disparities reproduced between typically wealthier, more highly educated workers who can secure, for example, daycare facilities that are open the hours that they work to help care for their kids. And it is lower income, vulnerable, and hourly wage workers who most need access to work-family policies and at the same time are least likely to have access to them.
There's lots of things that are different in our culture from the US in terms of mother's stress. Going back to work is after 16 weeks, but for most of our mothers, that's just for 2 or 3 days a week. It's not all positive, that has downsides to it as well, because our childcare system is good, but it could be better, I'm sure. But there's the positive side is that it's our culture might be a little more family focused and a little less work focused than the US.
So you've got these competing cultural expectations, this ideal worker model, which suggests all your time and energy should be focused on your job. And then you've got these intensive mothering expectations that say all of your time, energy, attention, and money should be invested in your children's well-being. Being caught between these cultural ideals really leaves women feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, burned out, and to be honest, tremendously guilty. I've interviewed working mothers in the US as well as in Sweden, Germany, and Italy, and I do have to say that here in the United States, working mothers really stood apart in the amount of guilt that they expressed to me in feeling these competing cultural norms and feeling caught in the middle of them, right? They felt this double bind that they were failing on the job and that they were failing their families and in particular their children. And to me, this gets to the heart of why it matters that we study motherhood, right? I can't tell you how many times I sat down with mothers, whether it was at their dining room table or in their living room or in a cafe near their work or maybe even in their office with the door closed in the middle of a work day. And moms broke down in tears, telling me that they felt they were failing their children, that they didn't have enough hours in the day and enough time and energy to devote to their children in the way that they thought their children deserved. And to me, that suggests there's something we need to do about these cultural ideals that say that mothers need to devote all of their time and energy to their kids. And at the same time, we need to do something about these ideal worker norms that suggest that workplaces deserve an all-absorbing commitment from their workers.
There's not a focus on overwork. There is in some jobs, obviously, and in some areas of work, but I think in general, we don't have that overwork culture. I think if people have the choice, which unfortunately a lot of people don't, but if they have the choice, they will choose a job that they're home at 6 and they'll choose to work a little less. I think you see many more parents these years working 4 days a week, both of the parents, nowadays than even 10 years ago. And I think, it's fine going home at 4 or 5 is okay, as long as you put in your hours, which is 40 hours a week. We don't have a culture that stresses excellence, so you don't have to excel. And that's...
Yeah, tell me what you think about this so far. With regards to childcare, she said it could be a little bit better. What's your experience of childcare in the Netherlands? What's the cost of it? I know that that's one thing that's putting off a lot of people from having children. You're seeing this decline in birth rates in a lot of countries, and it's just the affordability. Things like childcare in a lot of countries is super expensive. Some countries get it subsidised, some countries it's free. They have a free option. What's the situation like in the Netherlands? And when you see the comparison to the USA, it's quite stark. I really feel for the mothers and the families in the US. It doesn't seem like a enjoyable place to be a parent, honestly.
That makes life a little bit easier. If you don't have to excel, whether it's in work or in parenthood, in your parenting or in sports or in anything, if you can just be who you are and that's fine, that makes life easier, right? So,
Doe maar gewoon.
Yeah, exactly. Doe maar gewoon, dan ben je al gek genoeg. Yeah.
What does that mean?
So it really means, if you're you, that's fine. You don't have to be anybody else. You don't have to be extreme. You don't have to be excellent. Just being normal is okay.
Yeah, that's the thing that's definitely missing from a lot of parents. I think a lot of parents put too much pressure on their children to be the best, to excel. When that, again, you see a lot of people with mental health issues these days. I feel like that's a strong thing, especially you're growing up, you don't have any influence on your own life really that strongly like that. Your parents are there and expected to mold and shape you into the way you are. If you put so much pressure on your child, it's like going to have long-term negative effects, in my opinion. The way the Dutch do it, with that mentality of just allowing children to be normal and just go at their own pace, I think is great. What do you think about that debate?
Having grown up in the UK and peering in from the outside, there are other benefits of Dutch culture that to me make parenting seem a little less stressful.
There's a close proximity towards your own parents often, so most Dutch people don't have to take a flight to visit their parents, which is a huge difference, of course, with the US.
It takes a village to raise a child. I think in the past it was more common that a mother had support from her own mother or sisters or neighbor.
I also learned an intriguing concept that the Dutch emphasize the 3 R's: rest, rust, regularity, regelmaat, and cleanliness, reinheid. It's these 3 themes that researchers say contribute to Dutch kids being amongst the happiest in the world.
Sarah Harkness looked into the rest and regularity and where it stems from, and it's 100 years old. Ethnotheory coming from a doctor, from a pediatrician or a general family practitioner, who wrote a book about rest and regularity and happiness. So it's funny there, he makes the link very clearly, 100 years ago or 120.
So rest and regularity is not only great advice, it's also an excellent example of how adaptable societies are and how quickly societal norms can be changed when they improve people's lives.
Many Western industrialized countries have implemented a series of work-family policies like paid parental leave, high-quality, affordable, universal childcare, and a series of benefits like robust paid vacation and sick days to help parents reconcile paid work with caregiving.
We need to change that narrative from early on, even before pregnancy, just that general social narrative of what pregnancy and birth should be like. And yeah, I think also being aware that this experience is very different for different individuals.
Looking back, what are you grateful for in terms of the fact that you were able to have 3 children and be a mother?
Such a lovely thing to be a mum.
Yeah.
It's lovely, you're here with your grandchildren. And,
Yes. Oh, that's sweet.
If you haven't guessed, Marga is of course my own mother. When it comes to parenting, I've learned a lot from her, such as gentle nudges that emphasize the importance of rest and of being a calm, reliable presence. But some of the expectations generally put upon mothers still seem impossible to reach, so there remains a long way to go to make the motherhood experience something that is filled with less stress and more joy. Only then will we recognize just how extraordinary motherhood is and place greater value on the parents who are nurturing the next generation.
That's a really nice documentary there, and that it makes a lot of sense. One thing I like about the Netherlands, or I'm coming to really learn, is that while a lot of the Netherlands is super modern and very progressive and has a lot of things, great technology, excellent engineering, there's these foundations of the Dutch mentality that actually originate from quite a long time ago that still are in place today, and it really is for the benefit of the country as a whole. Things like the 3 R's, they say this is a long-term thing that's run throughout the history of family in the Netherlands, and to see it still they keep these ideas because they're successful and they've always been successful, and they keep them rather than a lot of countries try to change these things, or they just change naturally over time. I like that the Netherlands sticks to these foundations and it creates a more prosperous, better country and things like this. Yeah, it's really cool to learn more about Dutch parenting. As a parent myself, I always like to learn about the differences in different countries on this subject. Tell me what you think about it. Is it accurate in your opinion, having grown up in the Netherlands and maybe being a parent there? Is there anything that you disagree with? And tell me your own experience of being a parent or being a child growing up in the Netherlands. Thanks.